We were saying only a few minutes ago that was this the revenge of young people, this election result? Well, let's talk about that for the next few minutes with the political activist Annie Bartlett. He founded the Hands Up Who's Bored project to engage more young people in politics. And also joining me is Adi Onibada, a social media manager for the Bite the Ballot movement. Thank you both for being here with me. Let's start with that basic point, the revenge of the young. Do you buy that? Is that what the result is?
I think so. I mean, you know, 65 to 75 young people going out there and voting. We've hit such an incredible milestone, and to be honest, my campaign doesn't really need to exist anymore. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done with kind of political literacy and engagement, but it's incredible.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there was a credible candidate that directly appealed to young people this time round, and they repaid his generosity, or at least his extension of some sort of a promise, by voting and showing up.
That's interesting you say that, because I was going to ask you why this time, because we've known, you know, for many years that young people perhaps haven't come out in numbers. In 2015, when they did polling before that election, 60% said they would vote. In fact, only 43% did. But this time, it was different. So the question is, why this time?
I think, you know, things like Brexit, the referendum, a lot of young people that, you know, did vote to remain, sort of 18 to 25, I think it was 80% of them for the amount that did show up did actually vote, but I think they've been...
So they regret it, the people that didn't regret.
That's what I personally think, and I think this is the one time they can get that boot in. And I think there's also the Tory manifesto didn't really appeal to sort of younger people. I mean, you know, sort of living sort of help for those under the age of 21, university tuition fees rising. I think for them now, there was a lot to galvanise this kind of youth vote, and they took their chance.
So do you agree with that? It was
Absolutely.
Issues in the manifesto that was specific to young people. That is part of how that sector were energised.
That's just part of it. I also think Jeremy Corbyn, whether people want to admit it or not, had a massive role to play as a figure and as an individual. His personality, his charisma, what he showed and what he offered the young electorate. More than anything, young people wanted to vote for a person and not a politician.
Did they like those rallies? Because in part, you know, you had political pundits trying to pop that balloon and sort of harking back to Neil Kinnock in the Sheffield rally and say, well, that didn't work there, so why should we look at these? But did they work for young people going along to there, thinking they were part of a conversation?
It was outside and it was online, and I think especially online more than ever, that's one of the spaces that we didn't see the Conservative Party really utilise their voice or really try and go out there and mobilise young people. Young people were able to spread the message and amplify the voice in both spaces.
And well, tell me a little more about both of your campaigns, how you did it then. Was it the Labour Party recognising that potential and doing it, or just people like you, activists?
I think it was activists. I mean, Bite the Ballot, for example, have been doing it for years, trying to get young people to use their vote. My campaign sort of complemented Bite the Ballot in terms of giving young people political literacy through citizenship education, that sort of stuff, because really, you know, the state of citizenship education in schools is quite poor, so young people aren't getting, you know, that appetite for political engagement, and that's where Bite the Ballot and organisations like that are coming in and giving the momentum to young people to get involved.
Yeah, there's absolutely an appetite for social change, but it's about where young people channel it, and they weren't really seeing candidates that really spoke to them or appealed to them until this time round. It was a collaborative effort, and there was a lot of really amazing grassroots groups, whether it was groups like Grime for Corbyn or Bun the Tories, and even seeing young, respected individuals within the young community speaking up and taking a position, which we haven't seen really, to see so many influential figures back a candidate the way they have.
And it's interesting, isn't it, just how much can actually be shared on social media, just how powerful that tool is. You only have to think along the campaign way with embarrassing moments or car crash interviews, how those get shared around. You're smiling, so you know exactly what I'm talking about.
We had one there a minute ago. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that I think for a long time sort of the Tory party might have thought, oh, what's an engagement across social media? But now we've hit a milestone where actually that social media activity turned into, you know, physical engagement. And that, for me, I never thought that my campaign, you know, I literally thought that this moment could never arrive, and it literally has.
Which brings me to Owen Jones, who was one of those people who was almost the cheerleader for young people, getting them out, just crisscrossing the country on every platform, doing interviews. And he said this morning that there are so many politicians who simply have not engaged with young people, who have put forward policies because they've always thought young people won't bother to go to vote, so we won't bother with them. Do you think think this is a game changer?
Absolutely. Jeremy Corbyn took a massive risk in terms of directly appealing to a group that haven't always showed out as expected, but he hedged his bets very wisely at the same time. I think this has definitely changed the landscape of how politics is going to be done and how parties in the future approach young voters.
Go on.
I was just saying that I think now, given the fact that there hasn't been a young persons and youth engagement minister since 2010, it's time to reinstate that position.
Now that's interesting. Now you talked about the future, you talked about it being a game changer. I wonder if you have to be careful about that, because when you look back at the Scottish referendum, so that was only 2014, but a lot of young people, it was very, very similar to this actually, getting engaged in that referendum, but actually that has rather subsided over recent years. So sometimes it's difficult to keep the momentum, and quite possibly we could see another election coming up, what, in the next 12 months? Are you sure that turning out once can be replicated?
I think a lot of people didn't see it coming, but young people did. One thing that I would say as a generation we love to do is prove people wrong. We're not out buying avocados and drinking chai lattes. And I think a second opportunity to do that, well, any party who's willing to put their bets out and risks and chooses to ignore the young vote is definitely risking any sort of hold.
I think that there's still work to be done. I think we've hit an incredible milestone, but I think that the tide has turned. Young people need to be heard, and if not, this is a result, really.
Listen, a pleasure to talk to you both. Thank you so much for coming on to the program. I know that you had a bit of a mishap. You were laughing about car crashes. Before she came on, she managed to spill half a bottle of water over
to you.
on
myself.
Well done for cleaning yourself up and coming on. Thank you so much for talking to me.